Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the New Adjuster Podcast. Season 3, today is episode 3. Again, if you're new to this podcast and you're looking to kind of stay involved and keep watching our episodes, this podcast is all about helping aspiring insurance adjusters break through in this industry and advance their career, maybe with some insight from us and from our guests. So without further ado, we're your hosts. My name is Murphy. I'm in the property training department here at CNC, and with me, as always, is
Kelsey, property claims manager.
If you missed our last episode with Julian Badillo, you really missed a good one. So please go back, give it a watch or a listen wherever you get your podcasts, as well as episode 1 where we had Court Fowler on, and even back to our previous seasons 1 and 2. So make sure that you subscribe to the channel, CNC, Catastrophe, and National Claims. Hit the bell icon so that way you get notified of all future comment that comes your way. Hit the like button, leave a comment. Maybe you get featured on a future episode. So let's go ahead and jump into today's episode.
Well, in today's episode, we're doing things a little bit different. So thank you for being here today, Murphy.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I was planning on being here anyway. So
love it. So we're going to kind of take it back a little bit, slow it down.
Okay.
So we're here today. I'm going to ask you some questions about your history.
Go ahead.
And how you came about in this realm of adjusting. So first of all, introduce yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Murphy Buggs, insurance adjuster first in the training department now, started out in claims, started out in field, then kind of transitioned to desk, and then really doing now kind of what I have a passion for, which is training, the teaching. I was a coach, after I graduated, I played baseball in college and obviously high school too. And after college, I, was a coach and a substitute teacher at high schools in the area. So it's something I always kind of thought that I would do, something I kind of wanted to do long term. And then when this kind of came out of nowhere, now that I'm in a training environment, it's really kind of what I wanted to do the whole time. So I really enjoy it.
All right. So with your role as a trainer at CNC, how does that differ from being an adjuster? So what does it entail?
Yeah, so I think even as a trainer, you don't know everything. Nobody knows everything when it comes to adjusting. But as a trainer, you have to always kind of stay ahead of the curve. You have to, kind of be on the front end of new technology, new practices, new processes to be able to show those to folks that maybe aren't as experienced, for our new adjusters that are, watching and listening to the podcast that they're not aware of, right? But you can repackage it, change it, give it to them in a way that they can digest it easier and maybe a way that they understand better. But I think as an adjuster, you try to do that too, but you're not always looking for it, right? You're more reactionary as an adjuster.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of time as a trainer, you have to be more proactive. You have to go out there and look for what is new, what's going to help this new batch of folks that are coming in.
So you do a lot of researching on the back end, figuring out the trends, figuring out new, because you do more of the field side of training. Yeah. So we have a whole robust training department here at CNC. We've got field, desk, flood, property, all the above. But Murphy kind of runs the training department in the aspect of he's not only training people, creating videos, but also you do a lot with the Xactimate licensing. Mm-hmm. There's a lot that comes into play with that. But take us back a little bit. What drew you to adjusting?
So I don't know that necessarily anything drew me to adjusting. It's kind of funny. So my mom and Paul's mom, we all know Paul from here, his mom and my mom's mom, grandmother, they've been friends for a long time, still are. And so we kind of always knew them. We went to church together here in Chickasaw, Alabama. And my mom actually saw him in the grocery store one time, and he was like, "Hey, what's Murph doing? How old is he now?" And she was like, "Well, he's he just graduated college." And he was like, "So he kind of needs a job." And she was like, "Yeah, he's teaching and coaching, but yeah, something more full time." And he was like, "Well, tell him to, come talk to me." She came home, told me about it, and I didn't really know what to expect, so I came up here to this building, which obviously looks a lot different now. Met with him, and he was like, "Do you know anything about insurance?" And I said, "Very little." And he said, okay, have you ever even heard of an insurance adjuster? And I said, no, I don't even know what that is. He was like, you'll be fine. And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, look, if you don't know anything, that's almost better. Yeah. Because then we can teach you everything from the ground up and kind of mold you and build you into what we want you to be as an adjuster for CNC, obviously here. So again, I don't know that there was anything that necessarily drew me to adjusting. It just kind of
fell in your lap.
Yeah, it just kind of happened. Yeah, which is very lucky. I'm going to be the first one to say that.
I mean, I'm in the same boat. I get it.
Yeah. But yeah, that was kind of really the start. Yeah.
The start. Hey, do you know anything about adjusting? Nope. All right, come on in. Yeah, I love it. Yeah. I mean, I was kind of in the same boat too. So I get that. What was your first deployment like?
So I was
field or desk?
Field.
Okay.
Field. So I was actually in a classroom, substitute teaching, got a call from Paul, and I told I was like, hey, I got to step outside. I got to take this phone call. So I step outside. They're probably swinging from the ceiling fans in there, right? So I step outside, and he was like, hey, I got a job. You ready to go? And, the first thing he kind of told me, or one of the first things he told me was, if I call you, just don't say no. Be ready to go, right?
Don't say no.
Just be ready to take the deployment, right? And I didn't have anything that was like tying me down. I was still living at home. I didn't have any real responsibilities at the time, right? I just graduated. So
not married with kids back then.
Exactly. Not like I am now. Right. So he said, are you ready to go? And of course I was like, yeah, I'm ready. I'm thinking, where am I going to go?
Did you know anything about like adjusting money?
Yeah, a little bit. So, and I'll go back in it. So when I kind of first started and he was, walking me through getting my license and stuff like that, I was coming to study halls here for auto at the time. So we had study halls like every Tuesday and Thursday. I would come after baseball practice, and I would come up here and do that. And so I was kind of learning what I was doing. But as we all know, you can do things on a computer or on an iPad or something like that. It's way different when you get out in the field, right? So, so again, I had a general idea of what I was doing. But he was like, you ready to go? And I said, yeah. And I'm thinking, where am I? Am I going to Montgomery? Am I going to Atlanta? He's like, no, you're going to Chicago. And I was like, Chicago? And he was like, is that a problem?
Have you ever been there?
No, absolutely not. And he was like, is that a problem? I said, no, not a problem. I'm ready to go. He said, all right, well, you got to be there not tomorrow, but the next day. Huh. And so I'm going, I got to go home and pack my stuff, right? So I called the baseball coach. I was like, hey, I'm not going to be at practice today. I'm not going to be at practice the next day or the next day either. I got to go.
Were you playing or coaching at that point?
At the time, coaching. So he was like, hey, I understand. I know this is your full-time thing, so you do what you got to do. So I went home and got packed up and left and got on the road the next morning. I started driving north, the old Garmin, GPS, that you have, and typed the address in, and I was going right over the bridge, as you're going to like Baldwin County, Dolly Parton Bridge. And I remember going over that bridge and I was just listening to music and bebopping along. And I was like, what am I doing? I don't really, I know where I'm going. I've got the address, but
driving to Chicago.
Exactly. By myself.
That's
by myself, and I'm thinking, I kind of know what I'm doing. I didn't know anybody else who was going. So it was a very anxious, like 16-hour drive. Yeah, I made phone calls to everybody and their brother, just, hey, what are you doing? And I'm still driving, because it was an all-day thing. But yeah, that was the first deployment. It was eye-opening. Well, just the trip alone.
That there will tell you, make that first leap. Just say yes to the deployment and go. You might not know what you're going into, but it can work out for you.
It was worth it. Like I said, I really enjoyed it. And when I got there were so many veterans, like people that had done it a lot, and it was me and one other guy. We were the only green people, that had never done it, and they were super helpful.
Did you have a meeting place to like meet all of these people, or
no, not really. So we all met up for like an orientation that was a bunch of firms working for a larger carrier, that we were going for. So we kind of all met, and they kind of told everybody what we were doing, and then you kind of broke from there. And the next day, you showed up at 7 a.m. for work. So I kind of shadowed people for the first like day and a half, because again, you could do it on the computer, but when you get out there in the field and that car's in front of you, and because it was a drive-in, right? Like an old fire station. They just pull cars in that have hail damage. And, you can look at it on a computer and look at it in person. It's totally different. So I kind of shadowed people for about a day and a half and kind of, got my feet under him. And I was like, all right, I think I'm ready to go. So, and then I started, and then I loved it because it was all day, every day. Those cars were one after the other. 12 hours went by really fast.
Yeah.
was a lot of fun, though.
I could see an auto deployment being very beneficial for a new adjuster.
Oh, yeah.
Getting
Absolutely.
there, doing something like that at a centralized location instead of saying, all right, I got 30 claims for you in Wichita or somewhere, and then you're just going to people's houses and like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing.
Exactly.
Get that auto deployment. That's awesome. That's good to know.
Well, like I said, not having to go to people's houses by yourself.
By yourself.
23-year-old, don't really know kind of what he's doing. You're in a drive-through with other people, and it was all CNC people. It was all people from our firm.
Awesome.
So everybody's kind of looking out for you. Everybody's like, hey, look at this, or hey, check that out. So and again, when you're doing it 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, you learn it really quick and you kind of get fluent in it. And that was, that first deployment was 3 weeks. And by the end of the third week, I was upset that it was over, because I felt like I was really starting to roll.
3 weeks long.
Yeah, 3 weeks. So.
Okay. So did you learn any lessons the hard way on that first deployment?
Oh, yeah. So like I said, it was a larger insurance carrier, and they had re-inspectors that would come, right? And they would check behind you. So, and they didn't care if it was your first day or your 1,000th day working. Everybody got re-inspections, which is good. They're doing it for quality control purposes, obviously for them, but they're also doing it for you to make sure as an adjuster, you're doing what you need to do. And if you're not, they can, show you, hey, you missed this or you need to do this differently, and it helps you. So, yeah, I mean, those first couple re-inspections where, again, it's the first time doing it and you miss something, and it's like, okay, well, I won't miss that again. So I don't know if it was necessarily the hard way, but learning things kind of abruptly
I feel like
as they happen is good.
Kind of cool to have that backup too. It's like, did I do that right? Because I know even myself in some situations that I've been in, I'm like, okay, I did this. I wrote the letter. I signed it. It's mine, whatever. But there's not always a backup to say, check my work, check behind me. But having that is awesome. We do try to do that at CNC, have team lead, supervisor, somebody go behind you and approve something. So again, we're going back in time here. So if you can go back to day one as an adjuster, what would you tell yourself?
Just breathe. Because I remember being out there the first day, and it was, it's overwhelming. This is a big boy job, right? Or a big girl job, But it was a big deal. It was a big deal to me. I didn't want to screw it up. I felt like a lot of people had gotten me to that point. Didn't want to let people down. I didn't want to let myself down. So just breathe. Just like, hey, easy does it. Everything's gonna be okay. People are here to help you, and that's one thing. I feel like I say this all the time. But in the insurance adjusting industry, there are so many people that had a first day just like you, maybe had a worse first day than what you're having. And they will help you. Like, everybody is super, they're encouraging. It really is a big family of insurance adjusters. Doesn't matter what firm you work for. So, yeah, just breathe, calm down. Everything's going to be okay. Because I remember that first car coming in and heart's beating out of my chest.
I can only imagine.
Again,
being somewhere far from home with no one you know.
Oh, I know.
But like you said, it being a home, and I feel like that's what I've always experienced here at CNC, having the people surround you to help you. And I don't think any of us would be where we are now without
1,000%
those people surrounding you and helping you out. So, did you face any specific challenges in the beginning?
Yeah, I think just lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
Again, when you're doing like property adjusting, right, for houses, you can kind of prepare yourself, basic construction, things like that. But when you go into
Google
auto,
Maps, yeah.
Exactly. When you go into auto, it's kind of the study halls were fantastic. I don't know where I would have been without them. But again, seeing them on paper, it's, obviously different when you get out in the field. You pop that hood and you look at it on a sheet of paper, what the inside of a car should look like. And then you pop the hood on that F-150 and you're like, now what am I looking at? What should I be looking for? And like I said, hail damage is a lot of exterior, so you're not dealing with like flood cars and stuff like that, not the mechanical side, more structural. So, but again, just learning the different lingo that people use, to us, it's called, to an adjuster, it's called a deck lid, to other people, they call it a trunk, so you probably need to call it a trunk.
I never even knew that.
So they know what you're talking about.
A property adjuster.
Just like,
again, or a windscreen. That's something that I learned. And
holler back at Joel Reynolds.
The windscreen.
Yeah, or people say, "Oh, I got 4 fenders." Well, you got 2 fenders, 2 quarter panels. So that's what I'm saying. But things like that, the lingo of what people are used to saying. You say something about a deck lid to somebody, and they're like, "I don't know what the heck you're talking about." So things like that.
Yeah, figuring out parts of a car, different parts of housing and construction. Those are all things you should know before going in to your first deployment. Agreed?
Yeah. Oh, okay. 100% agree.
Cool. Well, when did things really start to like click for you being out there on your first deployment?
I would say probably at the end of that first week. Because again, it's 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. It's not like you could, like when you're in school, and you go Monday through Friday in class, and by the time you get back on Monday and you're like, I don't quite remember what we were doing. I mean, this was all day, every day. Exactly.
That's why they want you to do it.
Yeah. Well, but anyway, so you didn't really have time to forget because it was basically all you were doing, I mean, all day, every day. So I think at the end of the first week, I kind of really got my footing and understood what I was doing. And what was really beneficial is when that deployment ended, I came home for like 8 days, and then I went back to Kansas City. And I was in Kansas City for like 10 days and then left from there and went to Dallas. I was in Dallas for like 68 days or something like that.
These were all different hail deployments?
Yeah. So, and those were back to back to back, all in the span of about, 4.5, 5 months.
What time of year was that?
I went on my first one in April, and I think I came home at like end of July or end of August maybe, if the time matches up, yeah.
Well, hail season is upon us, folks.
It is. But like I said, that's what was helpful is it was kind of back to back to back. So once I really felt like I was in a good groove, then it just kind of continued on. But when I went to Dallas, it was not a field deployment. You were in an office, and it was I was working like supplements. So totally
You're
different.
someone else's work.
Yeah. Totally different environment. I was doing the back end of what somebody had already done at a drive-in, right?
Oh, man.
For hail damage. So
that was a whole lot of learning, new learning.
Well, and look, so you go to this operation, and they're telling you about what you're doing, total loss, this and that, but they don't really mention the supplement team. I kept waiting in that initial orientation for this larger carrier to tell me like what am I going to be doing, and they never really did. So I got on the floor, and I was I was a little nervous. I was a little apprehensive. I really don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. So you're taking an estimate that was written at a drive-in. Then you get a body shop's estimate, and you're comparing the two, and you're trying to decide, is this legit? Is it not? Do I pay them? Do I not? Do I fix the so you got all these different avenues you could take. And I mean, I was ready to come home. I really was. I don't know that I've ever told this story, but I went in and sat with the manager that was on site. And I mean, I broke down. I was crying. I was ready to come home. I was nervous. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't quite understand what was being asked out of me, but he was, he talked me off the ledge, and he was like, no, you're good. Go sit back down, sit with, and I won't mention my name. He knows who he is. He said, go sit with him. He'll get you through it. So I sat with him, same thing I did with the drive-in, about a day and a half, and then I loved it. And like I said, I was there, and then that's all I wanted to do. The next year I went back to Dallas, was there for another 3 months. So it was great, but...
Would you prefer the front end or the back end type of...
I don't know, because both of them were so much fun. Being on site, and granted, the car's coming through the drive-in, but somebody had to drive it, right? So you're talking to the policyholder. That was a lot of fun to me. Explaining to them what you can't pay for. That human interaction, I think, was good, because I enjoy the customer service aspect of it. But the back end stuff was fun too, because then you get into more of a, you're talking to the body shop, right? And you're saying, hey, we can do this, we can't do that. Can you adjust that? And then when you call the policyholder on a supplement, you're always the good guy.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Nobody's ever mad at you. You're always saying, hey, we're paying you X amount of more dollars for this supplement. So,
heck yeah.
Like I said, I enjoyed both. I don't know that I preferred one over the other, but they were both great experiences to start out with for sure.
So starting out, I know we've kind of hit on this already, starting out with like an auto deployment, but think of what would you have to say to someone starting out initially in property? Yeah. Would it be the same, what was your first property deployment like, I guess I should say?
Yeah, so again, as a property adjuster, I think the biggest thing is know what you're getting into, have some idea of construction knowledge. I mean, look, the YouTube is great because you can see, hail damage to shingles, wind damage to shingles, flood damage, whatever the case may be. You can have a general idea of what you're going into first. And again, train. I mean, nobody in their right mind, any IA firm, is going to send an adjuster out that is green and doesn't know anything and hasn't been through any type of training class. So you can go to a training class is one thing. You can be there in body, but you got to be there in mind and spirit too. You got to be able to take
mind, body, and soul.
Yeah, you got to be able to take in the information, right, and soak it up and learn from it. So that way, when you do get out on that first deployment, you can apply all that stuff. And are you going to know everything? No.
But we still don't.
Right. But the great part about it is each one you do, you get a little bit better and a little bit better. It gets a little bit easier. So I think that's kind of my 2 cents on that.
Okay. So how is your approach to the job itself, being an adjuster? How has it changed now compared to when you started?
I think now I'm more, again, I just got a larger knowledge base. I've kind of seen things done, 25 different ways.
Yeah.
And I think in the beginning, if I learned one thing, it was, okay, that's the way it's always going to be. And that's a big mistake, that adjusters make, is they think, well, when I see this, I have to do this. Whereas it's not always the case. Every policy is different. Every state is different. Every endorsement. So
every manager.
Exactly. Well, exactly. Every manager, every carrier is going to want a little something different. They have different best practices. So I think as a first-time adjuster, I thought everybody just does it the exact same way, very cookie cutter. Whereas now you got to be more fluid. You can't be rigid. You got to be open to change. You got to be, able to read a document and say, oh, they want it different than the last one I did. Now I've got to depreciate differently or use different, 30-pound felt instead of 15 or whatever, depending on the state. So
that's one of the things you have to keep up with, and it changes all the time.
Yeah.
I would assume it changes with auto as well, that, they're allowing for one thing, but now they're going to say, I don't know if there's 2 coats of paint on a car or not, but,
you got to blend, stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah.
There's those kind of things you got to think about. And it's good to know beforehand. But as a brand new adjuster, get in on those training classes.
I'm telling you, they're great. They're great because, again, they teach you what you don't know, and maybe what you do know, they reinforce the idea, and then you feel more comfortable about it. So.
Absolutely. All right, we're back with another misconception about being a field adjuster in 2025. This segment is brought to you by Blue Leopard Agency. Marketing shouldn't feel like a guessing game. If you're overwhelmed and looking for a way out of the chaos, Blue Leopard Agency has your back. Escape the marketing jungle, reach out to your ideal customers, and fuel your business growth with a custom strategy. Get started today at blueleopardagency.com. All right, Murphy, we'll get right back into it. Do you think that social media or online training sometimes paints an unrealistic picture or expectation of what adjusting is really like?
Yeah, I think it can. So I think social media in particular can sometimes create an image that may not be 100% true, meaning that, people think you can just walk out of here and get, rich quick. It's you work that first deployment and you can buy a new car and a new house. And I mean, look, I guess if you worked your first deployment and you got 150 claims on the first one, that might be the case. But in all reality, that's not how it happens, right? Nobody gives a brand new person that many claims right out of the gate, typically. I'm not saying always. So that really comes from years of experience and multiple deployments to be able to kind of build up that experience and the trust with that IA firm that they're comfortable with you working all those claims. So it's more of a long-term game. And again, I think that is a misconception sometimes, that people think they can get rich quick, and then online training too. When we do some of it at CNC, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but a lot of times online training, you don't get that personalized experience, so face-to-face. So sometimes you can be in that online training, it might be recorded, or you might be half tuned out, because you're watching on a computer screen.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're in person, you're way more likely to be dialed in and focused as to what's going on. So again, I think the in-person training is light years ahead of the online. Sometimes, though, online is your best option. So it's just really what works. Yeah. Really, it's what works best for you. So.
For sure. I know that even looking in social media and groups, you're going to find people from all walks of life working property, auto, anything in between, commercial, et cetera. So you're going to get answers, not only different departments, but different states. There's so many different laws, regulations, et cetera, that come into play there. And really and truly, if you're in a training class, you should be focused on one thing.
Yeah.
I'm working for the state of Florida and property claims for, whatever carrier.
Yeah.
Or I know that there can be some broader overviews of things.
But it's like the more specific, the better.
The better. Yeah. I feel the same way. So. All right, so we'll go ahead and get in the last half of this. how do you stay sharp and continue to grow in your career today?
Yeah, I kind of mentioned this earlier. Train. I mean, and look, again, I'm speaking from the point of view of a trainer, but I really feel like it's super important because you don't know everything. And it's hard for somebody as an insurance adjuster by themselves to stay up to date with things that are going on. You're not on those newsletters that go out, from different people, and those mass emails that carriers send out to IA firms that are doing work for them. But the IA firms are in tune to what's going on. So attend those trainings, even if you think you know everything there is to know about, property adjusting in the state of South Carolina. Show up to that class because you're going to learn something that you didn't know before. Those IA firms have to stay on top of it. They have to kind of be at the cutting edge and understand the new practices, new processes that are coming down. And as an adjuster, you got to stay plugged in too with those training classes. And the more you can do that, the better off you're going to be. Because if you ever get to that point as an adjuster where you think, I already know everything, everybody's passed you by, right? Everybody's passed you by because the other folks are saying, hey, I got to attend that class. I may not know everything about that, or I need to know what's new in 2025,
True.
2026, or things like that. So, different state legislature, especially in the state of Florida, gets passed all the time when it comes to insurance. Mm-hmm. It's hard for, again, just a person to stay up to date on that, but the carriers and the firms have to. So stay involved in those classes.
Yeah, staying compliant is huge. Not only compliant, but also with your license. You have to do your C's every once in a while, every couple of years, whatever. But is there trainings that you can attend? I say yearly, but say it's been a slow weather year, because again, we're relying on the literal weather for what we're doing. Sure. If it's not the weather, then it is for chance. Because
pipe breaks and
exactly,
slab leaks, things like that.
What I know personally that with hurricanes and stuff, different rules in Florida come up, different things that come up. Is there a centralized location that you've found to find updates, or just staying in touch with the carrier and
I think anytime
TPAs or whatever?
Yeah, I think staying in touch with the IA firm is the key. As many times as I've heard people say, oh, hey, you can go to this website and they'll keep it up to date. Then they may for months or maybe a year at a time, and then eventually it fades away. And then there's this other one that pops up that, hey, we've got all the so I feel like you're kind of always chasing the rabbit there, trying to find, where do I get the most up-to-date information? I think if you stay in touch with the firm, and any firm for that matter, because all of us have to do it, to stay up to date with what's going on, with, again, new legislature, new practices. But now, like you talked about with your licenses, that's totally on the adjuster. IA firms, as much as they might want to, they can't babysit everybody with their licenses because there's thousands of adjusters on these rosters, right? So they can't call, Joe Smith down the street saying, hey, your New York's about to expire. If that's on the adjuster, they got to stay on top of that.
We're so lucky that we sometimes get a little bit of that working at a smaller firm.
Yeah, we do.
I will say also, if you're on a deployment, if you are a field adjuster, if you're taking daily claims, there is 99% chance that you're going to have field meetings with your field manager or with QC or somebody that's going to keep you up to date with, hey, the carrier re-reviewed these claims. This is what we're seeing. This is what you need to change moving forward. And in those situations, I always want to tell people, do not feel bad if you know for a fact we're talking about you and your claim that you did something on. Yeah. This is information for everyone because it's something that's coming up with the carrier, what they're seeing in your estimates or your photos or your reports or whatever. Yep. Don't say, oh, yeah, that was me. I'm caught. That's not what this is. It's us training to do better. But definitely get on those meetings with, your field manager. If you're at the desk, I know we have desk meetings, once a week.
Stand-ups,
yeah, all the time.
Well, and it's funny you say that, too, because yesterday, Rusty, who works with us in the training department, he had a meeting with our field adjusters for a particular carrier. And I think it was like maybe an hour and a half, almost 2 hours worth. But it was all stuff that those adjusters needed to know. And they all showed up, credit to all of them, camera, asking questions, staying up to date. If you don't attend those, then again, you just get passed by. Yeah. And if you're not as up to date, you don't get that next claim.
You're not going to be called.
They're going to choose adjuster B over you, because, hey, they're more up to date. They're more in compliance. So, again, we had that one yesterday, and it was all stuff from the carrier on old closed claims that they're re-auditing, to see are things missed. And we got a lot of good stuff out of that. And training likes to take that and kind of put it in a shared document and pass it around, give it out to our adjusters. And then when we get new adjusters on, we can send them like an onboarding email like you do for one of your carriers or two of your carriers.
Lots of them.
Yeah. Send that out and be like, hey, this is all the stuff that is relevant right now. These are the things that are being scrutinized. They're being looked at. So again, but being on those field meetings and desk meetings alike, you learn all that stuff the day it comes out. And again, it's not calling anybody out. We're all on the same team. We all work for the same firm. Adjusters have this idea in their head that they think, well, I don't want them to do good. I need to be the only one. The fact of the matter is, carriers are not going to give claims to an IA firm if they're not doing good as a whole, right? They're going to pass it on to them. So everybody as a team, all the adjusters have to be doing well if everybody wants to eat.
That's so true. And you don't think about that.
Exactly. If the IA firm gets claims, everybody gets to eat, right? But if only one person does good, well, then why would they give claims to a firm with only one good adjuster, right?
They just hire you directly, which
and again,
they don't do.
That goes back into what I was talking about earlier. It's a community of adjusters. Everybody wants to do well, and that should be the idea. That you want everybody else to do well. You want everybody else to get claims, and because the more claims you get, the more everybody gets.
And if you see somebody struggling that's on your team at your firm working the same deployment as you, jump in and help.
Help them. Help them. Yeah. They appreciate it. And trust me when I say it makes you feel good too. I can speak for that personally. As a trainer, it makes me feel really, really good when I can show somebody something, maybe give somebody a tip and it helps them in the long run.
Or it clicks and you see it.
That gives me a lot of satisfaction, right? It's something that makes me feel good about what I do, and I know you feel the same way in the claims department too. So, and an adjuster to adjusters can do that too. It doesn't have to come from a trainer or a manager.
Yeah, go sit with somebody in the office.
Can do it. Yeah.
That's the way I've learned.
Yeah, if they don't know, trust me, they're going to be glad that you told them because then it's the pass it along method. Then after that, they get to teach somebody something. They feel more comfortable. So it's just, I think it kind of compounds. It helps everybody.
For sure. What are some tools, routines, habits, et cetera, that help you stay efficient and successful in this field?
Yeah, so I think routine is probably the best word, right? Everybody needs to have a routine about what they do. And I don't mean as far as like get ready with me in the morning, right? But, like what do you do on the job? Like,
you mean you're not doing TikToks?
No. So like first thing, when you get to your desk in the morning, what's the first thing you do? Check your emails. Do I have anything that came in overnight or escalated issues that I got a due date of today, that I need to go ahead and touch? Things like that. Or as a field adjuster, do I have any new claims that came into me overnight that I have to make first contact today? Do I have any planned inspections that day that I need to call them and just say, hey, just confirming we're on the ledger for 9 a.m. this morning. Are we still good? So creating those habits and those routines to kind of know what you're doing at each part of the day. Again, field adjusters, first thing, check for new claims, follow up on any, escalations you got going on, make sure all your inspections are confirmed for that day, new first contacts. And then once you inspect them, stay on the ball. When you get back to apartment, hotel, house, wherever, get back and go ahead and write those claims. Get them off your plate because as you get more, they're just going to keep piling up, right? But if you can start pushing some out the door as fast as possible, not only does that show you're proactive and you're churning claims out so you get more, but it lowers your level of anxiety because you don't feel like things are stacking up. And that's where people get in trouble.
Yeah, and not only with new claims, but think about claims that have been returned to you for revisions. Yeah. Those are super important because you really only have 24 hours, if that, depending on the carrier, to turn those back in. Yeah.
We tell field adjusters, anytime you get revisions, that's like top priority, right? Number one, it's already been turned in once. And look, everybody gets revisions. People take it personally when they get a revision request. They're like, oh, they're saying I'm bad at my job. You're not bad at your job. We're just trying to get to the standard that we all want to uphold, for the carrier and obviously for the IA firm. So get those revisions out the door quick. Those are top priority because if you can get those out, then that's one of them off your plate, right? And it should be pretty easy. Quality control or estimate reviewer, they're going to send you something and lay it out. Hey, I need you to do these 4 things. Do those 4 things, hit complete and exactimate, get it out the door. And that way, that one's finished. You can go to the next one.
This is especially good for a new adjuster because a seasoned adjuster could say, oh, I might not agree with that revision or whatever. But as a new adjuster, we have people in here that are seasoned and that are looking at your files and that are saying, hey, this change needs to be made. Don't think of it as an argument. Don't think of it Don't come back with, I don't think I need to change that, or why do you think it's wrong? Just be like, oh, okay. And a lot of times the reviewers will give you a reason. Like, hey, BCPs say this. The best claims practices say that.
Yeah. I think anytime as a I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
But when a reviewer sends you something, again, they're just trying to get you to do the best job you can. And the best thing that you can get from a reviewer is they say, every time I ask them to do something, they knock it right out.
Shoot, yeah.
That's great. That makes its way back to dispatch and the claims manager being you, and you give that person more claims because, like, hey, they're learning.
Absolutely.
They're doing better. They're accepting the criticism.
And showing up at those meetings, like you said with Rusty yesterday. You have your camera on, you're asking questions. I know your face.
Yeah.
You're asking the right questions, even if it's not a right question, even if you ask something that everybody should know. I myself ask questions that I know might be a stupid question, but I know somebody else is thinking it, you know?
And that's okay.
And not necessarily a stupid question, but helping your fellow adjuster.
Yeah.
I mean, that's huge in my book, that while you may know the answer to it, somebody else might not.
Yeah.
I want to kind of get to some advice to new adjusters. Do you have any advice that you would give to somebody just getting their license, trying to come into the field?
Yeah, so I think when you get your license right off the bat, one thing is be patient. Really be patient, right? You get this idea, hopped up in your head, and you watch these videos and you read on social media about, oh, I got my license and I'm getting deployed the next day. It's just not always the case, right?
Rarely is.
Be patient, right? Don't just think that because you got your license, you're going to get that opportunity in the next 6 hours, because it may not happen that way. I mean, for me in particular, I got my license in December. I didn't get deployed till April. And that's not a long period of time of waiting. Some people wait longer than that, and that's
again,
sometimes
waiting on
common.
Weather events is huge.
But be patient, and when you get your opportunity, that's when you got to make the most of it. That's when you got to go in, take advantage of it, do the best you can, ask the questions. If you screw up, it's fine. Everybody screws up on their first deployment, but what you can't do is have the same screw ups over and over, right? So you mess something up, you fix it. You don't make that mistake again. Make you a check sheet or a tick sheet that we call
write
it.
A sticky note.
Yeah.
Don't do this again.
Remember to do this on every claim. Make sure to mark customer contacted and exact analysis on every things like that. It will only make you better. But again, advice for a brand new person is you have to be patient, right? Because eventually the opportunity will come. Everybody gets called. We've had large events every year, it seems like, and everybody gets called. Everybody's going to get an opportunity. And look, CNC's not the only IA firm,
Right.
There's other IA firms. There's plenty of carriers out there. There's plenty of work for everybody. So be patient. Everybody will get their opportunity.
Yeah, and not only that, don't wait to be called either. You know that there's a hurricane sitting in the Gulf of Mexico.
Stay on top
Call
of
CNC. Call those girls downstairs in RDL and say, hey, I'm available. I am ready. I want to work for CNC. You have no idea how many adjusters reach out to me and say, I got offers from 5 different TPAs, but I want to work for CNC. Do y'all have anything?
Yep.
Maybe we don't. Maybe we're full. Maybe something. But
maybe we've already filled a roster.
We know your voice. We know your face. We know your name.
And the next one that comes up, you get the call.
You're gonna get
another
called.
Carrier comes up, you get the call.
Don't sit around waiting for it. It's not always going to be, like you said, a shoe-in. You're not going to get your license and then get claims.
Yeah.
But
and I don't want to speak for the ladies in HR, but I think I feel comfortable in saying that they are welcoming your phone call. They want you to be interested in us, because then in turn they're interested in you, right? They want to give you the opportunity.
They want you to update your profile online. Right. So we have your updated licenses. If you get new licenses, state license, so I just got, Florida or Texas or Georgia or whatever, call the girls downstairs and say, hey, I wanted to update my license. I uploaded them onto the portal, whatever the case is.
Because when HR pulls a roster to fill a list,
search by the state.
Yeah, and they do that, you want to be on that list, that shows, hey, I've got this updated license or certification or whatever the case is. So stay on top of that stuff.
Would you think that daily claims versus CAT claims, what would you think is best for a new adjuster?
Honestly, I would say CAT.
CAT.
The reason why is CAT, everything's basically the same. If it's a hurricane, everything kind of looks the same, right? It's all wind damage, fences down, trees down, things like that. In daily claims, you could have fire, smoke, water leaks, slab leak. I mean, you name it, right? You could have a myriad of different losses. Whereas field, in a CAT, everything is basically, if it's hail, everything's going to be, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for hail. You don't have to be looking for potential flood damage or a refrigerator leak or something like that, So I think CAT is easier. Plus, in a CAT, everything is a little less scrutinized.
You literally were reading my mind.
Yeah, I'm just being honest. Everything is a little less scrutinized in CAT because there's so much volume. There's so many claims. They got to get them out the door. That's not to say you can breeze through it and,
do things wrong.
Right,
QA is still a thing.
Exactly. So there's not a way for you to kind of just fast track and get everything out the door and get your paycheck. But everything is not with a fine-tooth comb, right? You can get away with smaller things unintentionally that you don't know about, but you can learn from them. And in CAT, too, you are absolutely going to have those field meetings, those war rooms on site, at the place of the CAT or the deployment. So to me, I think CAT is a little bit easier for a new person. And the being patient part, the weather's going to happen. So that's a great time to get in the door is in a CAT. That's when I first got into it, was in a CAT. So,
I mean, hurricanes, hailstorms, whatever, get on the rosters and get in there. But I would say if somebody calls you for a daily claim and you've never worked a claim in your life, I probably wouldn't agree to that, pipe break claim. Do you feel the same? Or do you think differently that
if you feel confident enough, take it.
But if you've never done a claim before.
If you've never done a claim before, I think maybe you pass it up, right? Look, you're not turning down a deployment. You're turning down one claim, right? So you're not turning down thousands of dollars. You may be turning down a couple $100, right, to work one claim. Will it be good experience? Yes. Will it maybe, show you the side that you didn't think was there, right? Oh, well, this is hard. They're really scrutinizing me. They're on top of, that may turn you off, from field adjusting or insurance adjusting as a whole. But if you feel confident, if you've gone to enough training classes, I don't care if you haven't done a claim before. If you feel confident in what you're doing, take it. But if you don't. Right. And just know that, hey, I'm not comfortable with that, but maybe that's something I need to look into. I need to take more. Honest. I need to take more pipe break classes or water damage classes and get that confidence level. Then you can take it. But if you don't feel confident, don't take it because you're only going to hurt yourself. You're going to get a bad taste in your mouth. And I don't know that I've ever met anybody that did insurance adjusting and said, I hated it. Everybody ends up liking it. It's just, it can be overwhelming at first because it's all new, right? And most people do enjoy what we do. So.
Yeah, it's definitely hard. I would say be honest with yourself, be honest with those around you. If it's not something that you've had experience in, say you've only been a CAT adjuster for the first, 2 years that you've worked claims, it's only been in a CAT. I probably wouldn't agree to a water damage loss. So it's a pipe break, a sewer backup, whatever. Yeah. But I'm willing to learn. Is there anybody that can show me the ropes, what I need to do? Ask those questions. There's likely somebody around that maybe it's local and somebody can do a ride along with you. Maybe you can find somebody local in that area that says, hey, I've got this claim. Can anybody take some time to do a ride along with me? All right, Murphy, I think I got one more question for you. So what keeps you in this line of work and what do you love most about it today?
I think, honestly, the people. I think the people, the team, the camaraderie of the people you work with, to me, it's a lot like sports. You don't remember like wins and losses and things like that. You remember like the people you played with, the locker room, the people that you work with. To me, that's what keeps me in doing what we're doing. I really enjoy the people that we have here, the people, even in other firms and carriers that we've met, that you kind of form, bonds and friendships with. I think that's what keeps me in it. And I always have an interest in trying to learn what's next and teach the next person or help them understand or learn what's next. That's what I really enjoy about it. So I think it's the people and then the passing on the knowledge or no, not the legacy, no legacy talk here. The next, the next batch of people, because I was in their shoes, you were in their shoes. We know how they feel. But if you can help them feel less anxious and more confident, and then you see them succeed, it makes you feel good. So I think that's what I enjoy most about it.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, like this line of work, it's always evolving. People can work here one day, you're at another firm the next week, but then you're always going to work with each other one more day, somewhere. And I feel the same way. The people that we work with make it.
Yep.
Like, it's why you want to do this. And
I like coming here every day because of the people we have here. So.
I mean, showing up at the office, because not everybody shows up to an office every day. But here, I don't mind driving here and chilling, hanging out with my friends. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. We do a lot of work. Yeah. All right, Murphy. Well, it was good having you on today. Thank you for entertaining me and my questions. And appreciate it.
Appreciate you. Thank you, everybody, again for joining us for episode 3 of the New Adjuster podcast. Season 3, we had an extremely special guest on today. Just kidding. But our next guest on episode 4 may top this one. So that's a little tease for next episode. You'll have to tune in and watch or listen to that wherever you get your podcasts. Again, we're going to ask you politely and please to subscribe to our channel, CNC Catastrophe and National Claims. Like this video, leave a comment if you have questions you want us to maybe bring up on the next episode. And so that way you stay up to date on all future content that we put out and it's coming your way. So again, we appreciate you joining us again today, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, y'all.